Anand, you have a new piece for The Ink entitled Donald Trump, Victim King. How well put. And in it you write, quote, "There are all kinds of people in this world, but none rarer than one who identifies with both Vladimir Putin and Alexei Navalny." Yet that was Donald Trump this week. Trump has long identified with Putin, of course, calling him a genius and opining against all domestic evidence that the smartest one gets to the top. More importantly, Trump has done everything in his power to make the world safer for Putin, to make the world his oyster. But when Navalny, Putin's nemesis as leader of the Russian pro-democracy opposition, died in prison this week, Trump found himself stirred by the story of a great martyr because Navalny reminded him of him. Trump's simultaneous identification with the Russian tyrant and the pro-democratic leader he muzzled and killed is less strange than it seems because it is important to Trump's project that he be both invulnerable strongman and persecuted martyr. He is a master at performing the victim king. And I think about the judge in the civil suit who said something, I think that's the first time anybody who has held him accountable has ever said, that Donald Trump pathologically is not capable of not being a fraud. And similar here, this behavior is grotesque. It's also pathological. He is so intent on creating pain and creating trouble that he can't help himself. And I think, Anand, your thesis is really a great description of how Donald Trump moves himself forward.
Yeah, he's, as anyone who ever actually has any strength in them would recognize, Donald Trump is a very weak man, a man of great woundedness and weakness inside. And he's a weak man who wants to be a strong man. And his ticket that he's figured out so darkly brilliantly is to perform the victim for his supporters. And I think this is sometimes a misunderstood element because he simultaneously says he wants to be the dictator on day one and so on and so forth. But he's constantly showing this kind of existential vulnerability to his supporters, which makes them want to save him instead of what's normally supposed to happen in a democracy, which is the leader worrying about you. He's trying to turn that around and make his followers expect nothing from him, but to actually save him, even, sack the Capitol for him. And so that's half of the kind of victim king equation, this guy who plays the victim to try to be king. But the other half of it is he is really building this movement by being the wannabe king of America's imagined victims. He's building a movement of people who have this kind of victimization complex, this imagined victimization complex. And it's really a remarkable thing to see so many Americans who are living in a remarkable country, a country that has done more for them than most places in the world would do for them, play this fantasy that they are victims and only he can save them.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I always talk about the guy driving, the millionaire driving the Maserati up to his country club, calling Biden a communist and talking about, oh, America, it's a socialist paradise now. It's changed. It's this, that, the other. As he looks at his phone and sees his stocks just continuing to explode upward, and he makes millions and millions of dollars. It's the same with so many other people. And Jonathan, especially what's so hilarious is there's so many people that will attack those on the left saying, oh, they're snowflakes, they're this, they're so easily triggered that. No, they are the victims. They're victimized about everything. I've never seen so many billionaires in Silicon Valley, billionaires across America who are victimized, who howl and whine and moan about America's not the America it was. Donald Trump attacking America viciously yesterday and the day before. He's always attacking America. They're always trashing America. The strongest economy in the world, the strongest military in the world, stronger culturally than anybody else by far. Always the victim. And you talk to Republicans and say, how can you still be with Donald Trump? They will say it's the Democrats' fault because they victimized Donald Trump. It's like they think that prosecutors made Donald Trump steal nuclear secrets, and then they made Donald Trump tell his IT person to destroy the evidence. Then they made Donald Trump go to other employees saying, can you flood the IT room? Made Donald Trump do all of these different things. Made Donald Trump inspire and start a riot and for 3 hours stare at the pictures of the violence and rewind back the most violent parts, right? Well, everybody's begging him to stop. And they're like, Democrats made Donald Trump do that. No, Donald Trump did it himself. He is no victim. He's victimizing everybody else.
Yeah, Donald Trump's sense of his own victimhood, perfect example. Just this week, he compared himself to Alexei Navalny. Navalny, of course, a Russian opposition leader, died in a Siberian prison. Donald Trump likely is accused of committed crimes and therefore was charged for them. And your piece is so interesting. I'm curious if you could expand a little more on the role here, the victimhood, the chord that Trump strikes with people, this grievance. Is how much of it has to do with race and class and people saying, hey, I no longer have a white person saying, I no longer have what's coming to me. I'm the victim here. You all have taken it.
Look, I think we have lived in an age of extraordinary change, progress and change. We have moved closer in our lifetimes to a bigger we in We the People, right? It's been, for the last 50, 60 years, extraordinary progress on empowering women to be their fullest versions of themselves, people of color to play roles and thrive as they were not in prior eras of American history. And for a lot of folks, white people, men, that's great, that's fine. A lot of people are very happy to share their country. But Donald Trump has appealed to a group of people who would rather break their country than share it, who would rather no one play with the toys than share the toys. And it's very, very effective. But I think the reason I wanted to write this in the ink is if we have to understand the depth of anxiety and fear and people not having a sense of who they're going to be in the future we're trying to build, the more inclusive future. And I think it's very important for pro-democratic leaders, the president on down, to find their own ways of speaking to these anxieties and finding ways to defang these anxieties because you don't want the situation where only the strong man, only the wannabe strong man, who is in fact a weak man, is speaking to those anxieties. It's very important for the pro-democracy side to speak to those anxieties, allay them, and give a vision of where we go when there's a bigger we.